Member Graves and Ranking Member Graves for the opportunity to testify on the impact of the longest government shutdown in our history. My name is Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, representing nearly 50,000 of aviation's first responders at 20 airlines. Just last week, I attended my annual safety and security training required for my qualifications as a certified flight attendant. And rule number 1, when performing safety-sensitive work, is to remove all distractions and focus. Flight attendants artfully complete safety tasks, shifting on a moment's notice from the emotional intelligence our job requires to the total focus it takes to perform safety and security duties. And we should talk about addressing the inadequate FAA minimum staffing regulations currently in place once we know our industry is on safe ground. Today, though, we must focus on the distractions created by this shutdown and the impact it had on running a safe and secure system. For decades, those who want to privatize every government program have vilified government workers as nameless, faceless bureaucrats. But the truth is, these are the people who keep us safe. They are the people who live and work in our communities. If they can't do their job, flight attendants can't do our job. And no one gets out of this unscathed because aviation is what connects and moves our entire economy. This is about our safety, our security, and our jobs. Shutdowns are never good. Our current experience is unprecedented. We can never allow it to happen again. Picture this. Airline pilots typically maintain what they call a sterile cockpit during takeoff and landing when no communication is permitted between the cabin and the flight deck. This is to allow pilots to focus on the most difficult and task-intensive parts of the flight. But during the shutdown, some pilots briefed flight attendants that there would be no sterile cockpit on their flight. They were so concerned that the shutdown had compromised security screening that they felt they needed to alter safety procedures so they could be informed immediately if there was a security issue in the cabin. Air travel is a fully integrated operation that relies on government and private industry working together. When any link in this chain breaks down, the whole system suffers. We still feel the shock and horror of losing our flying partners because of gaps in security. We never shake that grief, nor the loss we've experienced for years with furloughs and bankruptcies. Safety and security is non-negotiable. It is critical that Washington stop the threat of day 36 and take steps to ensure this never happens again. We hope that does happen this week. AFA fully supports the proposed Aviation Funding Stability Act of 2019. This legislation makes sense because there's absolutely no argument to close the government when funding exists specifically related to the functions of the FAA, and we urge immediate action on this along with all of our colleagues. Still, we've seen that aviation relies on many areas of government to keep us safe. We call on lawmakers to ensure government workers are never locked out again. We also worked with this committee to lock in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, including critical issues that matter for safety of flight attendants, pilots, and our passengers. The shutdown stopped implementation of this bill. Flight attendant fatigue exists today. The bill includes improved rest along with implementation of a fatigue risk management plan to close the safety loophole. Evacuation standards for certification of aircraft do not take into consideration the current cabin environment for safe evacuations. Secondary cockpit barriers are required to be installed on all new aircraft to help thwart an attempt to breach the flight deck and end the absurd policy of expecting flight attendants to serve as that physical barrier. The bill addresses these issues too, along with sexual assault prevention, reporting, and response, among hundreds of other safety initiatives. Again, none of this has been implemented, and the shutdown made it impossible to move forward with accountability. Flight attendants started to experience the economic impact of the shutdown, and as did our communities. For example, delaying the Payne Field opening to commercial traffic caused flight attendants to lose flying, lose pay, and the same is true for pilots and other workers. In addition, the economic impact to Everett includes cancellation of over 600 crew room overnights in hotels. This also means other travelers aren't staying in those hotels, eating at nearby restaurants, using transportation, or otherwise spending in the community. At many airlines, flights were canceled because the FAA could not sign off on delivery of aircraft. More work lost. This was the tip of the iceberg, though. 11 million Americans who do work related to our industry were in jeopardy. This hampered our ability to compete with the world, and it created damage that may last for years. There is bipartisan support to keep the government open with stable, long-term funding. Americans overwhelmingly support this. If Washington will not put an end to this crisis, we will take action to save lives and protect U.S. aviation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.